All right, let's get started. So welcome everyone to the State of Trees, January 2023, setting a baseline and a look back at the November 2022 International Forest Conference in Slovenia. And this is the 53rd Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign webinar. And today is Tuesday, 17 January 2023. So thank you all for joining us. I see we have a great group of participants here for the webinar. We have lots of countries represented. I had a lot of emails from folks and students in Argentina and Colombia who wanted to join the webinar today. So hopefully we have some here already that I see, but hopefully the rest will join in soon. And we are going to have a really cool webinar today with a presentation from Zoran Petrov. He is the GLOBE Slovenia Country Coordinator, and he will be talking about the International Forest Conference that took place in November of last year, as well as his work with bringing GLOBE Slovenia to where it is today in just about the last, just over 2 years since Slovenia joined the GLOBE program. And then Peder Nelson will be coming on to show some online tools that will help bring together what we're talking about today and will serve as that next step for what we've been doing in the campaign and bringing the data, information, and tools to the students and teachers so they will be able to submit student research projects for IBSS or even local ones as well. So let's go ahead and move on here. That's kind of what I was just talking about here. Peter is going to also talk about the GLAD tree mapping tool as part of this. And then we have the land cover map of Slovenia that we've shown with all the different GLOBE countries in the past. And then Peter Falcon will briefly talk about, how does monitoring tree height align to the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. And then we can have some discussions, and then we'll adjourn. So with that said, I always like to show these metrics, and what I'm direct you to is year 5 here. We started year 5 of the campaign, October 1st of 2022. And you can see we have over 8,700 tree height measurements, over 1,200 land cover measurements, and over 2,000 green up, green down measurements. Let's get those land cover measurements up for sure. But you can see here is that since the beginning of the campaign on September 15, 2018, we have over 136,700 observations coming in from over 47,300 global sites. And these are just these protocols here. And as a point of disclaimer is that we know that all these observations are not coming in from campaign participants, but they do fall within the scope of when the campaign began. So this is great data to really look at change over time, something we focus on, something that NASA really focuses on, especially for 5 years, because that 5 years of looking at change over time is kind of the gold standard for starting to look at the change over time in particular areas, from local environments to regional to global. So this is really important stuff. You can see here on the right side, we have the amount of webinars we've had. We have participants in the campaign from 60 GLOBE countries. We'd like to get that to be more, but 60 is great. And that's just under half of the amount of GLOBE countries of 127. And we have lots of blogs that people are continuing to look at with over almost 175,000 views. So once again, these are measurements that are coming in from all over the globe for tree heights, land cover, and greenies, green up and green down. And we have lots of observations for student and professional researchers to take a look at. So with that said, here is briefly for our next webinar, which is going to be on Tuesday, the 14th of February, 2023, and that's Valentine's Day. It's going to be the State of Trees, February 2023, local comparisons of change over time for land cover and tree height, and a call to students. And I won't go into what that is. You're going to have to join the webinar to see that. There's a little bit in the description on our website, on the campaign page's webinar website, with a little hint in what this call to students is going to be. But we hope it's going to be a call for students that they're going to want to answer. So we're super excited about this, and let's continue. I'm just going to do a quick little introduction to Slovenia, and I'm not going to, and Zoran, I'm not going to steal any of your thunder. I'm just throwing some things here that I have in my works here. But Slovenia is among the most forested countries in Europe. About 1.2 million hectares, where 1 hectare is about 10,000 square meters of forest, cover about 58.2% of Slovenia's surface. That is a lot of forest. Hence, one of the reasons why I'm sure Zoran thought, oh, the International Forest Conference in Slovenia would be ideal. And the growing stock or volume of all living trees in this area of Slovenian forest amounts to 338 million cubic meters. Of this, 46.5% is coniferous and 53.5% is deciduous. So, you know, really, really strong numbers there for an extremely forested region. And 79% of forests are privately owned and 21% are owned by the state or municipalities. So I just want to give you a couple facts here, you know, kind of setting up, you know, what Zoran's going to be talking about. But now what I want to do is, oh, I should say, I put these pictures up here because this was just kind of teaser photos that I put up here for what we did when we were out in Slovenia. In the middle, that's Zoran and me in the treetop tower in Slovenia, and he can talk more about that. But some of the snow that was there, and the picture on the left, you can see the Alps in the background. And then on the right side was when I was outside with some of the teachers from Slovenia at the conference doing tree height observations, showing them how to do that using the NASA Globe Observer Trees tool. So before I turn it over to Zoran, I have a short video I want to show, and this is called the Slovenian Impressions Forest Our Green Lungs, something I found online and I watched and I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's a relatively short video, but I want to show this, and then I'm going to pass it directly over to Zoran for his presentation. So I'm going to exit out of this quickly, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here, and can you see that on your screen if I full screen that?
Yeah, looks great.
All right, let me play this. This is a good one, and I'm sure Zoran knows about this group that puts out these videos in Slovenia, but I thought this one was really good. The Forests Are Green Lungs, and it's only, like you can see, it's only about 3 minutes long. So enjoy.
We don't hear sound if there's any sound associated with the video.
You can't hear any sound?
No, no sound at all, but the images look lovely.
Okay, there's no narration, it's just music, so we're just gonna play it anyway. So I'm not sure what Zoom's doing right now, so we'll just continue it. It's just cool visuals.
Okay.
Not sure why there's no sound coming out. Odd, but that's Zoom for you. Sorry that there was
Well-
no sound of that. I'm not sure what was going on there, but so
Brian, that is such a great segue to Zoran. That was such a
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
video.
I wish the sound would have played, but I don't know what Zoom's doing right now. So our featured presentation is going to be a look back at the November 2020 International Forest Conference in Slovenia with Zoran Petrov. He's the GLOBE Slovenia Country Coordinator for the Center for School and Outdoor Education, and I won't even attempt to pronounce that in Slovenian. So, in Ljubljana, Slovenia. So, let me pass it over to Zoran right now, and I will unshare. And Zoran, take it away. It's all yours.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for inviting me. Let's just try this screen share now. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yep, looks good.
Excellent. So thank you, Brian, for this wonderful introduction. It's really nice seeing some of those videos. Actually, the group you mentioned that puts out these videos, the I Feel Slovenia, was actually a national campaign for promotion of our country. So there's lots of that online. You can all look at more of that, but this one was about forests, and it was probably really the best one to show everyone today. So welcome everyone from my side too. I'm happy to be here with you at the 50-something webinar, right, Brian? So my task today is to talk to you about our International Forest Conference that took place in November in Slovenia. But just as Brian did, I'll just take a minute or two to set the frame of what I'll be talking about. My name is Zoran Petrov. I come from the Center for School and Outdoor Education, pronounced Center šolskih in obšolskih dejavnosti, or CŠOD for short, which is a national institution in Slovenia charged with outdoor learning. We're actually an institution connected to the Ministry of Education, and as such, we're part of the national educational system, and our programs are part of the national curriculum, which is a unique situation in Slovenia, and it lets us do all sorts of interesting things, GLOBE being among them. About Slovenia, well, Brian did tell you some facts. I can add a few interesting facts myself. So Slovenia is a smaller country bordering Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Croatia. You can see it on the map there. It's at the very north part of the Mediterranean. It's got an area of just over 20,000 square kilometers, with just over 2 million inhabitants and more than 1,000 bears and 100 wolves. So that's
excuse me,
Zoran,
we don't see
I think
your presentation.
we just see your first slide.
Oh,
yeah, they're not advancing. It's still on the working part mode for it.
Yeah, I think you need to go to presentation mode.
I'll just start the presentation again. I'll just share my whole screen then, and it should be okay now, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, looks
perfect.
good.
Okay. So on the map here, you can see where Slovenia lies, and as I said, 1,000 bears, 100 wolves. Very important if you walk our woods in certain region to be aware of that. And it's also a crossroads geographically. It's, as I said, part of the Mediterranean Sea, the Alps, the Pannonia Basin, the Dinaric Mountains. So we have a lot of geographical diversity as well as biodiversity. As Brian mentioned, we have almost 60% of our land is covered by forests, with 73 species of trees growing in our forest. So it's really quite diverse, and a day in Slovenia can take you from one part to another in really, really different settings. And it is, as I said, an ideal country for outdoor education, and our organization helps schools to make the most out of that. To give you some more idea what all we do within that, we use nature as an outdoor classroom, as a laboratory. For all you GLOBE enthusiasts, that one will be familiar. As a gym, a playground, a place for research, and for creativity. So there's really a lot to do and really a lot of different settings. Our organization was established in 1992. It's connected to the Ministry of Education, has more than 300 employees, over half of which are teachers. We have our specialized programs in the outdoors, and most of Slovenian schools visit our programs every year. So that would be about 100,000 students every year go through our programs. And as I said, we're part of the national curriculum. These are some pictures of our residential centers. We have 25, and they're set all around Slovenia. And now to get to the important part of the presentation. One of these centers in Bohinj, in the northwestern part of Slovenia, is where the international conference Forest, the best place of outdoor learning, forest and climate change took place. This is the picture of the center. As you can see, it's surrounded by forests. It's in the Alpine region in our Triglav National Park. Beautiful place that I heartily recommend for all of you to visit. The name of the conference, the theme of the conference that we decided on was Forest, the best place for outdoor learning, focusing on forests and climate change. There were several reasons for this. One of them is that forests are something that we have been focusing on for a while now. So this is not the first Forest Best Place for Outdoor Learning conference, because forests are one of the best settings for outdoor learning. But this year, or rather last year, we decided to focus on climate change. As we know, climate change is something that's increasingly affecting every one of us, and it is something that is also affecting our forests quite a bit. We had one of the largest forest fires last year in Slovenia, one that spanned a larger region from near the Mediterranean, from Slovenia through to Italy. And there have been several natural disasters connected to climate change in recent years, also with sleet, fires, flooding, and everything. So this is something that we have been putting more stress on in our educational system. And GLOBE is a program that's really very useful in that regard. So when we decided to do this kind of conference, of course, we wanted to feature GLOBE. And of course, we invited Brian to come and present the Trees Around the Globe campaign. And we were very happy that he responded positively. Who was the conference for? It was an educational conference mainly aimed at teachers. So most of the participants were teachers from Slovenia and 8 other countries. But there were not only teachers there were also experts from different fields connected to the theme of the conference. So there were forestry experts, there were experts from universities, there were people from international programs like GLOBE, and the European Outdoor Education Network. There were policymakers and all kinds of interesting people who then took part in all the activities that the conference, which was 2 days long, which contributed to these activities. And these activities were, first, the expert lectures. We had 3 expert lectures from 3 different fields. The first 2 were from our forestry service and from our largest university. So talking first about forests as such, and second about education in connection to forests and climate change. And the third was connected to GLOBE. and featured the NASA observations, the GLOBE program, and specifically the GLOBE Trees Around the Globe campaign. So you can see Brian here in the background. He can fill a room. These expert lectures really did the setting, helped us get into the setting of what the science says about forests, climate change, and how we are doing education in that regard. But probably the most important part of the conference were the presentations by participants. Most of them teachers, some of them activists, experts, practitioners of education in forests connected to climate change. And there were over 40 presentations of people who actually do activities with children in forests connected to climate change. So it was really an interesting setting where teachers could listen to other teachers, learn how they do things, and this is really something that's the most important part of these kinds of conferences. So getting to know good practices and having the opportunity to learn from people who can teach you how to transfer those practices into your own practice. We also had an interesting panel discussion. You can once again see Brian here. So GLOBE was featured quite prominently at the conference. A colleague of mine and I, which you can see on the far left and right of the picture, we were just moderators for this discussion, but the real experts here were from left to right, a professor from our university, from the Faculty of Education, a representative from our Ministry of the Environment. So the ministry was engaged in the conference, as well as the Ministry of Education. We had some representatives from there. Then Brian Campbell as a representative of the GLOBE program and NASA, and a representative of our National Institution for Adult Education. So the thing we try to do is really keep the perspective broad. So education is not just something we do in school, inside the curriculum, but it's something that should span everything from teaching new teachers, from policy making to international programs, from kindergarten to adult age. So this is something that we explored with the theme of how forests and climate change connect to education in practice. And to finish with activities, my personal favorite, the outdoor workshops. So this is something we really like to do in our conferences, and it is something that usually leaves most of a mark on our participants. So not just listening about things, but going out, trying them out, getting the real experience of how things are done in a setting that will be as memorable as possible. So Bohinj Lake at the background here, with all the forests around, was I think quite a good setting for Brian's workshop that we see here, which was, as he mentioned, observing trees with the GLOBE Observer application. But there were a lot of other workshops that people were really quite keen on participating in, and I must say that the outdoor workshops were the most visited ones, the ones with most participants. As I said, we've focused on climate change, and I did set out a few reasons why that was so. We probably don't need to go into too much of details about that, but we tried to just connect everything, the whole topic of the conference to this, and not just the topic, but also who we invited and how we organized the conference. So as I said, there were policymakers like our Ministry of the Environment, our Ministry of Education, our largest university and its Faculty of Education, our Forest Service, the GLOBE program, obviously, and the European Outdoor Education Network, which we're also a part of, and is very strong European network for outdoor learning that all of you Europeans, if you do not know about it, I heartily recommend you go and check it out, because it's the network that connects most experts in this field. Also, the way we organized the conference was trying to be as sustainable as possible, to just keep with the spirit of climate change, of fighting climate change. So these cups you see down here are something quirky that we pulled for the conference. So there were no glasses, no cups, nothing offered for the participants. Each of them got one cup to use for the duration of the conference, that they could then wash themselves and take back home with them. So hopefully they're all still using these cups instead of everything else that they could be using and throwing away every time every time you drink something. So the key for such an international conference to succeed is definitely teamwork. So this is the team that's made the conference happen. Each and every one of us was necessary for this kind of thing to work. Beside also all the participants, we had around 160 of the participants, and everyone shared in creating this common experience. So teamwork, as well as those extra activities. So something that we find really important is for these kinds of events to not just be about the program, the expert program, the not just the science of it, or the lectures and workshops and everything. You need to have a broader picture. So that's why I put some of that food on this picture. That's why I mentioned that we always do a conference overnight. And that the social aspect of the thing is very important. And I also wanted to mention that we always try to keep in mind a broader picture. So when Brian came to Slovenia, we also, just to warm up, had another lecture at our National Space Center. So this is once again Brian filling a room. And on that same day, we took advantage of treetop walk location that we have in Slovenia that was quite near this space center. So this is the selfie of us there, and I will just play you a video of how that looked. We're quite lucky to have snow at that time. This was one of the locations in Slovenia that had it. Brian talked about coniferous trees. So this is a location that really has those all around. And we'll soon come to how high we actually were at this location. So never just keep to the event itself. Always try to see what else you can pull from it and what the location and the nature outdoors near and far can offer you. So the last picture here, some of you will recognize Bara Semerakova from the European GLOBE regional office. After the conference, it's very good to keep in touch with people that you meet at these expert conferences. So with Bara and her colleague Anna, we kept in touch after the conference, and I kept this one because funny thing happened. They had to hitchhike out of Slovenia because their train didn't arrive. So there was another adventure connected to this conference. And what I would like to stress is memories that you make at these kinds of events are very important, and they will help you remember all the expert stuff that you hear. So this is, and that's all I wanted to say about the conference. Brian also asked me to say a few words about the GLOBE program in Slovenia. As he said, we are just over 2 years old. We joined in December of 2020, and I must say I'm quite happy with how things are progressing with GLOBE in Slovenia. We have a ways to go, really a ways to go to catch up to GLOBE superstar countries like the neighboring Croatia, for example, but we're getting a lot of help from the GLOBE community, so things are going along nicely. At the moment, this is the picture of what kind of coverage we have with our schools in Slovenia, with our GLOBE schools, bearing in mind that our organization, the Center for School and Outdoor Education, is listed only as one location, and we have 25 centers, 12 of which are already engaged in GLOBE. So this picture is not the realistic picture, but it will give you an idea how we have managed to grow in the last 2 years. So we're quite happy about that. The key factors of success, the way I see them, and the way we have evaluated the whole process so far, were connecting to existing networks and projects. So this is something that was really important for us, not to just start something from scratch. We're a national institution that already does teacher training. We have outdoor learning programs that we call School in Nature in the Slovenian curriculum that we can connect to GLOBE. We have projects connected to climate change, to space, to underprivileged communities, to international mobilities, to teacher training, to many different things. And we try to connect GLOBE with these projects and to existing networks that we have. So this was very important for us when we started everything, to be able to hit the ground running, let's say. The second thing, similar to that, is forming partnerships. Right from the start, in Slovenia, we formed a partnership with the Eco School movement, who also, and they also have their own network. And they were the ones who also helped us in promoting the GLOBE program within the Eco School programs. So this is something that was really important and really helped us a lot in promoting GLOBE and reaching schools so quickly. Something that's really very important with these programs always in our experience is to focus on teachers, and that was true for GLOBE too. So basically for us, the first step was thinking of how to get to teachers. And beside just promoting the program through our existing networks, it was the way they did it was to organize trainings for them as real GLOBE experiences. They needed to be outdoors, hands-on, so they needed to really do GLOBE. They had to be not just a few hours to get to taste some of the topic, but they had to be overnight. So we did that. And of course, being a new GLOBE country, we did not have any experts in Slovenia on GLOBE, so we did not have any trainers, let alone mentor trainers. So we connected to the GLOBE international family. For all 3 of our teacher trainings so far, where we got more than 100, almost 100 teachers trained, we had Croatian mentors, Croatian trainers come to Slovenia and do GLOBE with us. They helped us train our teachers. And during these 2 years, one of our teachers actually already became a GLOBE trainer. So we also have our first trainer at the moment, and we're also very happy about that. Not only our neighbors in Croatia, but we always had help from the European Regional Office, which helped us with joining us online, especially for the first trainings, which were still in the pandemic, in the stronger phase of the pandemic time. And of course, our GLOBE's very own Peter Falcon, that's also here with us today, was with us for all 3 trainings as a special guest and lecturer for the closing lecture for each of those trainings. So those are the main things that we needed to get GLOBE going in Slovenia. Of course, financial support that we have helped, because we do get some money from the Ministry of Education each year. But for that funding, I can also share how much. For the first year, it was 25,000 euro. And for the second year, it was 35,000 euro. But that was enough for us to organize the trainings, to buy equipment that we circulated to schools, for us to engage in international activities. In the last year, for example, a group of our teachers and students went to the Estonia learning expedition. We had a group of teachers go to the regional meeting in Croatia, and we had lots of other activities that we could support with this kind of funding. So we're very lucky in that regard, and we hope that this kind of situation continues. So with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. And if you have any questions, I'm open for them.
Zoran, this is Peter. Thank you very much for that very nice shout out there. We do have a couple questions for you. Let me start off with Anna, from Argentina. Let me see what she said. She asked, does the school work with non-formal education? That is camps, conferences, etc.
So you said the school. I don't think I caught that completely. Well, schools in Slovenia can work with different organizations and also engage in connecting to the local environment, if that's what the question was. If the question was about our organization, we are actually not a school. We're a national institution with 25 residential centers that are part of the national curriculum. So the way it works is schools, as a part of their curriculum, have something we call school in nature. It's actually mandatory part of the curriculum where students with their teachers go somewhere outside of school to do outdoor learning. That's usually a program of 5 days together with students spending the night at a center where that they choose. Most of those programs are done with our centers, but seeing as there are many schools and we do not have enough centers yet to cater to all of them, schools also have the option to connect to other institutions. So yes, in that regard, they do connect to different organizations from the public and private sector. So from everything from the Red Cross to Scouts to private individuals and ranches and everything. So I hope that caught the gist of it a bit.
I think so. If not, and I can probably ask another question in the chat box and you guys can continue that conversation. You have a lot of comments about how people love the fact that you had the sustainable cup. Dorian Jennings, that's such a great idea, such a good idea to model the behaviors you want at the conference. So she really enjoyed that. She also has a question as well. Her question is, do you ask the participants to respond to you later to let you know how they implemented what they learned in their classrooms or other settings?
We do, not through this kind of conference though, but conferences are usually the culmination of other things we do. So I mentioned we do have a system of teacher trainings. So it's what we call our outdoor learning didactics system. So teachers can come to very different trainings with our organization, which are usually organized in a way that they first come to one of our centers, stay there for sometimes 1 day, but usually for 2 days or more, where they experience a certain approach to outdoor learning, GLOBE being one of them, because we for GLOBE Slovenia, we really focus on the outdoor aspect. And afterwards, they have, let's say, a kind of homework. So sometimes it has to do with some additional materials in an e-learning environment, but usually it's a creative process. So they need to take what they learned at the training. They need to apply it in creating a new learning approach, or rather a learning activity. And they need to do that activity with their students. And afterwards, when they do this, they are eligible for applying to one of our conferences, be it a national conference, which we do yearly, or an international conference, which we also do almost every year, but it depends on what the theme of the conference is. So basically, the teachers can get to the conference after they have done something in their classrooms. And there is no requirement for them to tell us how they implemented what they learned at the conference. But usually when teachers get into the system, when they get connected to other learning, they usually come back to other trainings, they come back to other conferences, and it becomes just a revolving system. They learn something at a conference, they join another training, they try something else out, they present at another conference, and it goes like that. So this outdoor learning network of teachers is getting larger and larger in Slovenia, and there's I would say a lot of demand for it, and this is also one of the reasons that GLOBE took on so well.
I think that explains her next comment. She writes, Slovenia's rocking GLOBE. And I think that answer totally explains that.
Well, I do hope that we are. There's still a lot to do. For me, we're still in the early phases, and there's still a lot to be done to make the experience and the opportunities for GLOBE students deeper in Slovenia. But I'd say, yeah, we did cast the web wide enough to be able to do something with it in the following years.
I'm always very amazed at how much you've done in such a short amount of time. It's very impressive. So that's really awesome to see.
Oh, well, there's that key word again that I mentioned earlier. It's teamwork, so it's never just an individual or two. It's always the team. It's always a lot of people. It's always the teachers that come to the trainings and then actually do GLOBE with their students in their schools. It's always the community when someone, we all have a lot of things to do. We all get tired, and when some people get tired, other people just give them the energy back. So it wouldn't work without that. So that's something that we caught on very early on in all the online activities that we actually were part of in GLOBE at the beginning, because 2020, you know how it was all Zoom, Teams, and everything. So the community was something that really inspired us, and that's something we're really trying to foster in Slovenia first, and then second we go into translating materials and the official stuff. But you need to get people interested, you need to get people excited about it, then everything happens. So are there any more questions? Peter, if you had any more.
I
cannot
apologize.
see anymore.
I was actually muted.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have time for 2 more questions. One of them, Anna asked, and you may have answered this already, is a question about funding. Is funding also coming from the government? I know you mentioned it's coming from the Ministry of Education. Is it coming from any other sources as well?
At the moment, let's say not only, but the main source of funding at the moment comes directly from the country. So from the ministry, which is also our direct financer for our organization, because we're one of the national organizations connected directly to the ministry. But there have been some other sources of funding already. For example, our eco school partner got some additional funding through tenders with the US Embassy in Slovenia. They are an NGO, so that's actually something that's been helpful with fundraising in that regard. And for our part, as I mentioned, we have a lot of different projects, national, international, local, everything. So that is something that we've been starting to do in that regard, connecting GLOBE to other projects. So we have already got some funding for GLOBE that we will be using this year for supporting schools that do GLOBE connected to climate change for activities through our national climate goals project. We will send teachers on international mobilities to other countries, to around Europe, to GLOBE schools, to seminars organized by the GLOBE community through Erasmus projects. And there are several other combinations that we have in mind that we're trying to combine into something that will make GLOBE even stronger in Slovenia. And of course, if we make ourselves stronger, we'll be in a better position to help others in the GLOBE community too, like we have been helped this far. And it was really valuable for us.
Very true. So last question, and this comes from Batya from Israel. She asked, what campaigns are held in Slovenia for 2 years? I'm not sure if she means for 2 years or the coming 2 years, but what campaigns will be held in Slovenia?
By held, I will answer what we took part in. We didn't organize such campaigns per se on our own, but we did take part in several different campaigns. The strongest, I would say, is the European Phenology campaign. That one teachers took that one up really well. Then there was the Water Bodies campaign, the NASA Clouds campaign last year, Trees Around the Globe. We were connected to that a bit too, just not sure at the moment to what extent. Brian can maybe tell us a bit more about that. But usually, mostly with trees, it was the Phenology campaign. We're also currently engaged in testing the new proposed microplastics protocol. So that's another one. And I'm sure I missed one or two in there. So campaigns are really something that we found to be very useful for teachers and schools to start with in GLOBE. So one of the things is, of course, just connecting activities of researching outside, measurement, and everything that teachers in our country actually do a lot already. Connecting that to GLOBE, so connecting what they already do. But I would say the more interesting part was connecting to the international campaigns, and we've had quite a lot of success with that.
Excellent. Well, Brian can attest for your amazing team. He wrote in the chat box, you have a great team to work with there. And can I just say that your presentation was so well put together that there was a bit of a petition for you to host the next GLOBE annual meeting in Slovenia. That's how well you did, and that's how beautiful it looks to us. There are a couple of comments in the chat box, so if you want to go ahead and read through those, afterwards.
I will.
But yeah, please. And any other comments you may have?
Well, for me, it's been a pleasure presenting for you, and especially being able to just answer any questions you might have, even later on, either in the chat or Brian can share my contact information, which is also on the GLOBE website of GLOBE Slovenia. So it's been a pleasure. I can keep answering things in the chat room. Thanks again for inviting me, and I will be with you for the remainder of this wonderful webinar. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Zoran. It's always great working with you. Please don't ever stop asking.
Same.
Yeah,
All right, Brian, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Zoran. Yeah, Zoran, you've done amazing things with GLOBE Slovenia, and the conference was wonderful. Even though the first day was very long, I remember I think we started breakfast at 7 a.m. and we finished up at 9 p.m. of the day. But that was so good just to meet everyone and get out there and see, how well, you and your team did, organizing it and getting everything set up. And yeah, and the location was perfect. Even though I didn't get to see the view out my window until like halfway through the second day because of fog, and then we were inside until dark, and then next morning I woke up, there was fog again, so I finally saw it when we were outside the second day. I actually saw how beautiful it was. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, beautiful landscape there for sure. So
immersion, Brian, that's the key word.
Yep.
We always try to do that in every respect.
Yep, that was definitely full immersion. Yep. All right, thank you. All right, let me go ahead back and share my screen, and we will go back, and I'm going to show two slides here, and then I will pass it back. Oh, sorry, I will pass it over to our own Peder Nelson. All right, so let's go here. All right, so everybody see that okay? Peter Falcon, you see that okay?
It's popping up. Give me one moment. It says it's starting to share your screen.
Okay. Can anyone else see it yet?
There you go, Brian.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, cool. Yeah. So weird delays going on with Zoom today for me. So I don't know. So, okay. So I'm going to show two slides here, and then I'm going to pass it to Peder Nelson, as I mentioned. But here we have a GLOBE Slovenia. This is from the GLOBE visualization system, where anyone can go in and look at the observations. And these happen to be the where the tree height and land cover observations are. And we have tree heights. We have 159 observations from 99 sites. And in here where you see this whole group of ones, these were right around the major conference, that we had, the International Forest Conference. And we have land cover. We have 12 observations from 10 sites. So what I did was I took the tree height observations and I did this graph like I've shown before, and you can see the distribution of tree heights, number of trees, 159. Okay, but then you can see the distribution of tree heights from the 5.7 meters all the way up to 39.9 meters. And you can see the majority of these trees in Slovenia that have been measured, that are representative, kind of the average representation of the 159 trees, are between the 11.4 meters and 17.1 meters. And then if you go over here to land cover, I did just a quick graph here, just showing you the different elevations where the land cover observations were taken. You can see here, these are just these different land cover observations and the elevations associated with them. So building upon what, kind of starting off, a little bit what Peder Nelson is going to talk about. Here is one of the maps that we've shared before. We've shared the land cover maps, and I'll put the link in the chat to where these maps are again. But you can find the maps showcasing the trees and land cover for all 127 GLOBE countries. We created this for the campaign, And this happens to be the one for Slovenia. And you can see Ljubljana right here in the middle with the build up, the urban environment here. But you can see how forested this is, and how, up to the northeast part of the country, you see this really large amounts of cropland up here. But Peder Nelson, well, he can talk a little bit about the distribution here. This graph up here on the top left is something that Peder has, but I just wanted to show you this because this leads us into what Peder's going to talk about. So, Peder, I'm going to pass it over to you. Do you want me to keep this slide up for a second, or should I unshare and you can share yours?
No, this is perfect, Brian. I really appreciate you bringing this really good information back to us, because, I think one of the things that's really important for us to recognize is, the GLOBE community is not the only one that is creating information about the Earth, right? There's a lot of other groups that are doing that. And to me, this is one of the exciting parts about the GLOBE program that has changed over the 27 years now of the program, is that back in the 1990s, we were teaching students how to make maps like this. Now there's a whole group of scientists who are putting out maps like this that are describing different locations, on almost a weekly or daily basis in some cases. There's just a lot of data and information coming out. And so I think, this is kind of one of those things that, Zoran, I really appreciate, this focus on climate change and, and this question of how is climate change affecting or could be affecting the landscapes of Slovenia. And I think one of the things that is really helpful is first just getting a look at what these maps that experts are making, look like. And, and I think what this really describes to me is an area, like you said, Zoran, that is really forested. And I think, that, rarely do you see a place that has almost 75% forest cover, right? And so just kind of in our probability, if we were to go out somewhere, we're most likely going to be taking photos of trees, right? Most of our locations are going to be tree related in some way, or as you can see on this map, cropland related. And, and I think that's another interesting category because, well, what's getting grown there? They could actually be trees. They could be some sort of, nut fruit or, something like that is actually being grown. And what's interesting when you see this map like this is you can kind of see most likely the lower areas, right? The lower areas on the landscapes here, where people are able to actually grow croplands. And so, when you look at a land cover map like this, there's actually quite a bit of information that you are thinking about and you might be already starting to analyze and think about. And again, this could be the beginning of a lot of student, questions. That you have a built-in hypothesis here. I mean, we kind of have this with this nice distribution here of if we went outside, are we actually going to see tree cover or not? Like I said, our most likely thing that we would see according to this map is forest cover. But we have to start thinking about where people are located, right? And where they might actually be living, which might be more in that cropland area or the herbaceous cover and less in the forested areas. But to me, this is one of these kind of first questions that we can start thinking about, and even doing some comparisons between where we're located and like what we've been talking about here in the country of Slovenia. How much total area is your country? That's one of those metrics that we've actually provided to you. The other piece that I want to really highlight that I think is really kind of a fascinating part is the tree height distribution. Right. So here we're giving you two pieces of really interesting information because we saw in some of those photos, that there were some pretty tall trees. And one of the things that we don't get from some of the maps that just tell us that it's forested is the height of those trees. And the height of the trees can actually give us an indication about the age of our ecosystems or the age of our landscapes. And here, what's kind of interesting is when we look at the upper left and we look at the shape of the tree height, we actually see a group of young, really young trees. We see this, kind of group, and that's kind of the height that Brian was indicating are mostly getting measured there. And then we can see, yeah, right there, Brian, we can kind of see we're kind of getting kind of on the lower end of that distribution. And then if we go back to the overall country, this is, looking across the entire country, we also have a big group of trees and areas that are on the taller end of this. And here, we're again kind of getting that max of 37 meters, which is similar to what you were showing, Brian, right? And so here, what would be really interesting is what is the difference between what the GLOBE community is measuring in tree height versus what has been estimated across the whole entire country. And so, Zoran, one of the challenges, I guess, is can you guys sample the landscape to get closer to what this distribution looks like, right? That is what scientists are describing the country as, right? Kind of, this more young or young trees that are sort of shorter, right? A lot of those, and then also a lot of taller trees, kind of on that other end of the spectrum. And what's kind of interesting is what might have happened in that to cause this drop in tree height or tree age that could potentially be related to, what people were doing at a particular time. This is kind of one of these fun things that if we know the growth rates of trees, how much is a tree growing each year? We might make some assumptions here and be wrong, but you could assume you could start asking the question of, are the trees there in Slovenia growing a meter each year? And so therefore these tallest trees are only 37 years old? Or, Zoran, are they actually growing less than that, right? Are they only growing at half a meter a year, which would seem to indicate that the oldest trees there are 37 times 2, right? A little bit older than their height, right? But this is kind of one of these fun questions that goes back to the type of trees that you have in that area, which goes back to all of the measurements that the students are making that might be able to describe, did the scientists get this right in terms of the overall height of the trees in this area? Or, this goes to finally, this big question that Brian keeps bringing up to us is 37 meters the tallest height of trees that they will ever get to in Slovenia, right? Or could they actually get taller than that in the next 2 to 5 years, right? And we don't know. I think this is kind of that question. And if they can't get any taller than that, why? Is it people coming in and cutting down those tall trees? Is it windstorms that come through in the winter and blow down these trees? Is it droughts that are coming through with the climate change like you were highlighting? This is something that Peter Falcon and I have been noting across the western coast of the United States is our tall trees are the ones that are dying in the drought, right? So, so to me, having a map like this, that we've tried to put together for, like Brian said, all 127 GLOBE countries, allows you to start looking at the patterns of tree cover, where it's located, the height of those trees. And Zoran, I think the other thing that's really exciting about this that we wanted to really highlight for, in a unique opportunity that Slovenia has is Slovenia is a new GLOBE country. And so how do you know what was happening before you started taking GLOBE measurements, right? It sounds like luckily you might have had some other complementary programs that might have also been doing some tree height measurements or doing some other hydrology measurements or some other sort of things like that, right? So we might have to really kind of look at those protocols compared to the GLOBE protocols and see how does the data compare, right? Can we actually use that to look back before you became a GLOBE country? Or one of the other great things, like I said, is you have the opportunity to actually reconstruct maybe the 5 years prior to you becoming a GLOBE country through a map like this. And so here, here we're just showing you one of the most recent maps, which is from 2019. And so this is what Slovenia looked like right before you joined. And so Zoran, and I think for a lot of you out there, one of the things to think about is what has changed even over the last 3 years since this map was created. And one thing I heard was there was a big forest fire that happened. Well, that actually might not be in this 2019 map because it happened after that, right? And so this is kind of one of the ongoing science activities that that we hope that everybody in this Trees Around the Globe student research campaign recognizes that, things will change on us and we don't know where they will change. And so going out and making those tree observations, making those tree height observations are vital because of this unknown climate change impact that can be happening out there, let alone, human activity too, that is unpredictable. But here, Zora, I think, this was exciting to us and this is what we'll talk about in the next webinar, next in February, is how to use information like this to fill in that data gap, or to help you to understand what was happening before you made your tree height measurement. And so, this is to me a really great place to start for everybody, is look at these tree distribution graphs that we created for the country, and you can use that to then look at your local context. Do you have more trees, less trees than this, than the larger country, or is it the same? And that is really one of the big things that we wanted to highlight for you all. And we wanted to save you a little bit of time and give you a place to go with this. And so, Brian, as you said, make sure to drop that link to our Google Slides into the chat so people can go and take a look at this. And I want to really highlight the date aspect. 2019 is kind of when both the tree height and this last land cover map was created. And so, this is one of the big things that we wanted to do here is not just focus on the GLOBE data itself that everybody's collecting, but to put it into this larger context here in what we're actually doing. And as you mentioned, Zora, the global activity that is happening, that our individual actions can actually contribute and help scientists who are working at this larger level help make these maps that can help feed back into our classrooms. That to me is the exciting thing as both a teacher and somebody who likes to be outside and actually interacting with these trees. And so with that, I want to highlight an upcoming training activity that I am a part of, and that NASA has put together to highlight something that is another piece that we want to mention in this campaign, is that previously GLOBE was only done by students in the classroom. Well, you might be able to get outside and measure a few trees and be able to collect enough information for an individual project. But sometimes, when you're wanting to understand something like climate change, that is longer term than maybe what you can do during your little IVSS activity here. One thing you might do is ask your community to collect data that you can use in your own student research campaign, right? And so one thing that we've been doing with the GLOBE program, and that Brian, has been traveling the globe highlighting, is, the GLOBE Observer mobile app, that you can actually ask your parents, your friends, your neighbors, as they're out doing things, use that and collect some science data so that the students have that, or you can use that in your classroom, and you have enough data to be able to answer some of these big questions, right? And that can really also help the larger community understand the educational activities that are happening there. So I'll share this in here, but this is an upcoming training that's going to be happening at the end of January. And it's going to be translated into Spanish as well as being presented here in English. And one of the things that I'm doing is highlighting some of what we've highlighted in these activities here in the Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign, which is how to take these globe measurements and connect it with that remote sensing satellite data that NASA's really good at collecting. But it really needs that ground context to make sense out of what we're seeing, right? So this is a good introduction to some of those things that we are doing in this campaign. And I encourage you to share it with your communities. And again, invite them in through the GLOBE Observer mobile app to collect some of that information that can be used in the IVSS student research campaigns. The other thing, that I want to highlight is that, one of the things that you need to do when you're thinking about research questions is understand the context, right? Describe why you're asking this question. And so I really want to highlight that most of the countries out there that are GLOBE countries have actually contributed to these reports on their forest resources that are available. Again, to give that countrywide assessment of what are the amount of trees, what are those driving impacts that are making the trees grow or not grow in locations. So again, I wanted to highlight how these two, the maps and these assessments provide that context to those local measurements that students are making here. Okay, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time, focusing on that, importantly, because here I want to demonstrate, because one of the questions that I've never been to Slovenia, right? So these maps are the way that I help to really kind of understand a location. And so, the nice thing is, again, you can look at a lot of different variables here in terms of forests, right? Including how much cover is in a particular location, right? So not just is there trees there, but that proportion amount of trees. So I'm going to leave this on, and one of the things that you can actually do here on your own, pull up these line statistics. Okay, and here I'm just going to type in Slovenia, and we'll go there. And we actually get to see where the country is and a little bit of an outline. And importantly, again, it's giving us a little bit of context here of the area. And then it's giving us, again, kind of this percentage that we can see. And I think one thing that's really always helpful with these maps, zoom in, right? And when you zoom in, you'll start to see some of the different patterns and those percentages and that gradient of tree cover show up. So it looks like it's taking a little bit of time on my computer here to load up. All right, got the tile. And so, this is, again, a really useful way of thinking about forests. It's not presence, absence all the time. We have to think about the area that we're talking about when we discuss how much trees are in a particular area. So looks like, yeah, that's still kind of loading on me. So I'm going to go back to this classification, because here again, we can see where we might be seeing those trees in this particular location. And I want to highlight, for Zoran's sake here, but for everybody, again, one of the things that I like about this is this tool will give you a nice way of doing some comparisons for, say, the last 5 years. And I find this to be a really interesting statistic, right? Is overall, it looks like, well, one, the country area hasn't changed. So that's a good thing to notice. So we're comparing the same area. But then we can see here that overall, it looks like at least there hasn't been a lot of tree cover change, maybe a little bit, but overall, we're at 74%. Where we do start to see some changes, right, is maybe in the wetland area, but overall, and maybe a little bit in the built-up class. Overall, we're not seeing a large percentage of change in the last, say, 5 years here in Slovenia like this. And this, again, is a really interesting pattern and report that can provide some context about, is climate change affecting our land cover in this particular area like this? So, this is where I went to actually get this information that we wanted to provide to you. And many of us, if we've been in the GLOBE community, you might be able to look back and see how your measurements compare to these maps. And you might actually even be able to pull down and see where some different land cover changes are occurring. And so, this type of data, again, is widely available now in a way that it previously wasn't. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time, really kind of going through and highlighting that piece, because we have this great opportunity to not only describe our local location, but contribute to this larger NASA science of remote sensing. So that is where we wanted to spend a little bit of time, giving some context, because sometimes you don't have enough GLOBE data to do a climate change research, but you want to put it into context and you want to help understand what is happening in this climate change context with your GLOBE measurements. So we wanted to really highlight that, because next month we're going to focus on this baseline and how you can actually monitor your landscapes through some of these changes that might have been occurring. And so here we wanted to focus on a brand new GLOBE country that doesn't have the depth of data as some of the more longer running countries here. And how do you deal with a deficit of data? And so, Zoran, I hope that you come back and you'll learn a little bit more about how we can help you as a new GLOBE country come in and get this historical context. And if you're one of those teachers or in a GLOBE country that has been around for 25, 27 years, we're going to keep expanding on how your historical measurements are complemented or can be made a little bit more robust through these time series data that NASA is now providing out to us. And we're going to be highlighting in this RSET training in particular. So with that, Brian, I'm going to throw it back to you before I keep talking up until our deadline.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter, you have some comments and some questions in the chat box. And one of the first ones, and I know you already answered it already, but is basically, that is an awesome site there. How can I get my country in that way? And I know we have something in place it'd be great to be able to go to the site, but also if we have something in place already made, that would be awesome as well. And I think we do, correct?
Yes. And Brian, go ahead, and if you can find those, drop those into the chat. What we did is we broke up the GLOBE countries into different regions, and so one of the things that you can also do is go back to our prior webinars from last year and go to the region that you want to look at or that you're in. And we introduced that region a little bit and discussed some of the particulars of that region in there. And then we went through and we made these images and put them into a Google slide deck. And again, I think this is a great thing that is unique to the GLOBE community, which is this comparison to other locations, right? And so we wanted to facilitate that through our Google slide deck of images like what Brian showed earlier on Slovenia there. But then also I'll put in the link to that website that I showed earlier, which has the land cover map on it. Because the great thing is that was made by our European colleagues. It's not a NASA product actually. And so, that again is one of these things of, there's a lot of people who are contributing to this, and that it's not just NASA in the United States that's leading this way. And so that to me is another really exciting thing that has changed over the last 25 years of the GLOBE program, is going from a very centralized map production to everybody being able to make it and really localize this information.
Yep, and Peter, that link is in the chat. It's the third to last one that says GLOBE Country Land Cover Map. So that takes us to the one where we have all 127 countries. And I just, as you were talking, I added Belize. I realized Belize was not in there yet. So I just popped it in the Latin American Caribbean region. So it's in there. Right
Excellent. Now. That's great, Brian.
Yep.
And,
all right.
And so that slideshow that you put together, is that a good way to kind of compare your country to other countries if you don't want to go to the Copernicus data and grab it yourself? Is that something that partners or teachers can do?
Yes. However, Peter, I would hesitate. I mean, that is a good way of doing it. I do also recommend, if we go back to this website here, the one thing that I really like about this is that, say, for instance, I don't want to compare Slovenia, or maybe we can actually do here. Let's since Croatia was brought up as the star country. One of the things that I like about this, Peter Falcon, is that here you can do a quick comparison side by side, and you get the graphs right there. And this is a great question. Why does Croatia have only 59% forest cover, but Slovenia has 74%? What is it about those two locations? Is it natural, or is it a human activity? So that is one of the things that I really appreciate about this. However, you can go to that Google slide deck and you can rearrange, and you can make a copy of that, and you can make that however you want. And again, this is one of those things that we want to encourage people to do, is not just focus on your own country, but use the GLOBE system to reach out and to do some collaboration and comparison to somewhere else. Because here, one thing that's interesting is Croatia is twice as big as Slovenia, right? So even right here, Peter Falcon, this does a really good job of just kind of, putting things side by side and kind of walking us through like that. But we wanted to make sure that you could do that for your region as well as the overall GLOBE countries. So if you have 127 students, assign them each a GLOBE country and have them look at that and do some comparisons. Who's closest in terms of forest cover? Who's the farthest? And so there's a lot that we wanted to try to provide to you in terms of this context setting that this information provides to you there.
Gotcha. Great. I forgot to mention one thing. Zoran mentioned about the teammates and their energy, and Peter definitely has that. As soon as he starts talking, his energy is infectious. So there is other comments that you have and some questions as well. let me look through. Oh, one question we have from John Moore is the RSET, in regards to the RSET training. When will the Spanish be available after the conference? It says, will the RSET, go ahead.
It should be really close to the same timing of things, and because they're doing the translation for the slides right now, and then we'll be doing our voiceover recordings tomorrow, and so that should be coming right along with the English version of those. So hopefully, that's kind of our first big translation over. But if it's something that the larger GLOBE community wants or could be useful for, let us know, and that is something that we'll work on and trying to coordinate and help get translated. Because to me, this is that exciting piece of opening up the GLOBE community beyond just the in-classroom activities like that. So hopefully, John Moore, it will be pretty close to that, and any teacher who needs that as well. And the great thing is it will be coming shortly, or definitely before the IVSS. So that, again, the way I'm trying to set this up is some of the things that we will be talking about in our February webinar will actually be introduced in that RSET training. And so you will be able to use the two together to reach out to your own communities and share with them the ways that citizen science can impact education as well as science.
If I'm not mistaken, in those RSET trainings, there's different levels, right? So if you don't feel comfortable or you feel overwhelmed, it's not like they're gonna just throw you into the fire. There's like beginner, middle, expert level, correct?
You are correct about that, Peter Falcon. And with that, this RSET training right here that I'm talking about is an introductory training that goes over a lot of different citizen science activities. And GLOBE Observer is just one of them that is being highlighted. One of the other ones that I think is really relevant to our community is one that looks at water level and lake level of water. And that's to go with a brand new mission that NASA has just launched, which is called SWOT, right? The Surface Water Ocean Topography Program. And that is all about what is the height of that water. And one of the disturbance agents for our trees is floods and flooding and saturation of that soil, which can then also get, the trees will get blown over. And we're hearing a lot about this, right? In Peter Falcon, California is getting blown down, and all the water that's coming in. So this connection between water and where it falls and how it falls, rain versus snow, is all a really important part of what trees are providing to our landscape. And Zoran, you mentioned big fire that came through. Well, that's something that Peter Falcon is really dealing with down in Southern California. And and when we lose those trees because of climate change influenced events like fires and drought, it could remove the thing that is holding the soil in place. And all of a sudden we have these landslides, mudslides that are impacting roads or actually destroying people's houses. And so again, going out and just measuring and capturing what our landscapes look like through our GLOBE Observer app is a really valuable thing to do. And so, I just kind of want to mention out there that Peter Falcon, stay safe out there with all of the rain slides and everything that's happening, with all of the trees in your area, for sure. And I, in our February webinar, I think we'll highlight a little bit about how these winter activities actually impact what we see in the summer when we're usually out making our measurements. This is a really interesting connection between our seasons that sometimes we don't really attribute these winter disturbances to what we see during the summer when we make our measurements and when the trees might not be there that we measured last year. So, this is the big thing that we want to really highlight is the Earth is dynamic, it's changing, and go make your measurements.
Thanks, Peter. We have time just for one more question. But before we get there, I just want to point out that The RSET training that Peter discussed is in the chat. The land cover view from Copernicus, well, can't say it, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. Copernicus is in the chat. The links are there. And the slideshow that Brian Campbell put together, the link is in chat as well. So be sure to click on those to open them up before we end. So you have those links available to you. Anna was very nice. She mentioned if you need any help translation to Spanish, she's very happy to help you. And the last question for the day is from Zoran. And he asks, Peter, there are several reasons for the difference in forest coverage between Slovenia and Croatia. But an interesting one is historic deforestation by Venice along the coast of the Adriatic Sea. So that's something interesting to see, that history is being a part of the way our forests are shaped.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that, having never been there, I have no idea about, right? So I really appreciate, this is one of the things that I just really love about the GLOBE community, is that as a remote sensing scientist, I see these things changing colors from space, but I don't know why they're happening until I'm able to come together in groups like this. And this is where that teamwork is really valuable, because I can provide these maps that provide some context. And as Zoran really demonstrated today, bringing that local knowledge, to our data set, to us and to our community is really enriching what we'll be able to do, especially in that Mediterranean region. And I'm really excited, to keep diving into these changes that are happening across our global country, or the GLOBE countries here, because there's a lot of changes that have occurred, and we can really, as a community, provide insights in a way that is just really exciting. And so hopefully everybody, catches this enthusiasm that we've tried to bring to you in our webinar today. If you have questions about what we've shown, or resources that you would like us to highlight, Brian has done a really good job of breaking up these hour-and-a-half long webinars that we do into content chunks. And so go check out our webinars, our past webinars, where I've highlighted a variety of these tools in the past. And all of us are willing to come into classrooms and actually walk students through some of these activities as well. So let us know what you need to be successful in helping students capture the trees around the globe.
Thanks a lot, Peter. And Brian also just put in the chat the link to the past campaign webinars as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Brian as we conclude this webinar.
All right, so we're going to, with Peter and I agreed, we're going to hold the Sustainable Development Goals discussion with him for February webinar, because it fit well in with that as well. So that webinar page that I just put up, you will find the recording of this video, this webinar. But as always, I will send out an email that lets you know when it's available, because it's a matter of waiting for Zoom and then getting it up online and then getting a link created and everything. So, thank you for the amazing webinar. Thank you to Zoran for the amazing presentation and for the great work you're doing with GLOBE Slovenia. Thank you, Peter, in bringing that home. How and we saw there's a lot of interest here, how people can look at their own land cover maps and then investigate further what's going on around them, and really looking at that that change over time, which we're going to delve into a lot more in February. So thank you all so much, and we will see you all next time. So I will stop recording.